like, are you fucking kidding me with this right now? I felt gypped.
You are, as they say, you are a survivor of mass destruction.
Oh my. And that's the title. You are a survivor of mass destruction. Oh my god.
Well, or a victim of mass destruction is another one that they say.
Welcome to the Novel Universe with your hostesses Ashley and Dawn. We rate and review the newest and most buzzworthy books. We are true book club girls who don't always agree but do enjoy a good book discussion. I'm Ashley, the fantasy architect.
And I'm Dawn, the criticizer of books.
Grab your favorite beverage and come and enjoy our universe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Novel Universe with your hostesses Ashley and Dawn, and today we are coming to you with the most buzzworthy book that's happening right now all over your newsstands. We are going to discuss House of Sky and Breath by the one and only Sarah J. Maas herself. This is book 2 in the Crescent City series, and we are going to preface the start of our podcast by stating this is going to be spoilery. If you have not read this book, we're not going to apologize for the fact that we're going to spoil all of it, because it is hella long. It is so long. I'm sorry, but we really just want to talk about it. We really want to utilize all the time because Maas wrote a freaking encyclopedia for all of us Maas lovers. So there is a lot to discuss. So, yeah, we'll just get into it. So we were left off at the last book, House of Earth and Blood, with Bryce and Hunt. You know, they're finally closing all the gates. The Asteri come and they warn them and they say, hey, you now have the horn in your back and you're super powerful. You need to watch your back. Just lie low and follow the rules and nothing will happen to you. And as everybody knows, that's a hidden sign for something is going to happen. And so we were left with leaving Hunt and Bryce in a good state. We still have Rune. We still have, you know, the bros, if you will. We still got Ethan. We still got Flynn. We still got Deck. You know, we got all those guys. We got Therian. And yeah, this is the next step in their adventure because they are learning fairly quickly that their lives are being controlled by the Asteri and the Archangels, kind of basically telling everyone what to do. So, without further ado, we are now back in the city of Crescent City.
Yeah.
If you will. Start off, Dawn, what did you rate this book?
I gave it a 3.5.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bum, bum, bum. That's okay. It always makes for great book talks with you, Dawn and Ashley. Like, and I will tell you, I gave this book a 4.25. It wasn't quite a 5 for me. Just because of some things, you know. But this is why Dawn and I enjoy talking about books, because her and I very rarely agree on a rating on a book. And so if we agree, we blow each other's socks off because we don't talk about it beforehand. So, yeah. To start, I would say the biggest issue that I had with this book, along with a lot of other people, is the length of this book is agonizing. It's agonizing because there's just so much. Maas does not just like put words on a paper. Like, you have to really pay attention. So I felt like I was reading a Game of Thrones book for the first time in my life. Like, there are so many things happening. We have really just stepped outside of YA realm altogether with her. This is complete adult. Like, so don't expect to get your feelers hurt or love interest like right away on the page. You gotta buckle in. You gotta go along for the story because it is long. And she's setting the pace for a lot of things to come. So, yeah, that was my first qualm with this book, was the length.
Okay, so this is... Hopefully I am going to be making sense. Well, I basically thought it was too long too. And so I agree with everything you said. I'm trying to read my notes here. Okay. All right. So my main dislike is I think that Maas writes for her fans. And I'm beginning to think that I am not a fan anymore. I love Throne of Glass. I only got to book 2 in Akatar, and I won't be reading the next book in the series. Sorry, Ashley. But here's my problem with the book. She has a lot of characters, and they all have their own stuff, which is fine. But, and like we said, we will be spoiling this book. This is a spoiler edition. There is no spoiler free. So I'm about to spoil all of it. So if you have not read it yet, you need to jump out now. Okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye. Okay. So everybody has their own stuff. And like I said, which is fine. And I like a book where everybody is on the same goal. Like everybody has the same goal. And in this book, at the beginning of the book, the goal was to find Sophie and to figure out what she knows and to go on from there. Once they find Sophie, then everybody kind of goes off on their own and they all don't have the same agenda. And I feel like Maas writes for her fans because her fans like characters and they like to follow these characters on their journey and they like to see what's going to happen to them in the next book because it starts off as just a little teaser in this book, but we know something big is going to happen with Tyrion. I was calling him Tyrion, sorry. In the next book. And we know something big is going to happen with Rune and Daybreaker, whatever her name is, in the next book. But in this book, it's just they have their own little journey that is totally separate from the main goal. And I personally don't like that because I just felt like she did not invest enough time. I did not care about Tyrion going to the Viper Queen. I didn't care. I did not care about Ruin and Daybreaker. I did not care about Fury and Juniper. I did not care about Celestial, whatever her name is, and Homegirl. I didn't care because she didn't really develop. And you would think 800 pages would be enough to develop, and it just wasn't because there's so many characters. So, I just don't like her writing style anymore. I felt like Throne of Glass didn't do this, and I don't like her writing style anymore.
Yeah, so I have to agree with you in the sense that there was a shift in the writing style of this book.
Okay.
There, in my opinion, like you said, the start of the book, they're on a set trajectory to find this Sophie Renass person. She is the catalyst that's like sending everything out of whack, and they have to find her. She's the last link to Danica. Somehow she's the last Thunderbird, which is like a whole other thing, in and of itself. Yada, yada, yada. So they all kind of merry band together, and I'm like, okay, cool, sounds good. But then after that happened, it's like then we broke out into the characters then having their own underlying stories, kind of like what happens in Throne of Glass series in the Queen of Shadows. Like we start to see that shift, and then into Empire of Storms, where it's like each chapter or each section is based on one or two characters and their journey through how they're getting to this point or whatever. Which for me, as a Maas lover, like I've read every single book that she's written, and my hardest problem with Crescent City, the first one, was that I didn't understand her writing style because I'm used to what happened at the end of the book, where it's very much so character driven. versus plot driven in a lot of ways. So, like, I got to that part and I was like, oh, shoot. Like, there's, like, that's Maas style writing. Because then, like, everything was set in motion. You understood, like, they're all kind of, like, fighting for their own purposes to better themselves in this world, but yet they're doing it together. Like, they each have their own sky or accomplishment that they're trying to reach. And they all help each other and then they move on, type of a thing. Whereas, like, in a Kotar, like, they are all fighting for the same exact thing. They're fighting for the same goal. So it's really interesting to me to see those two different styles, like, all of a sudden, like, it go from one to the other, because then that to me made sense. I was like, oh, I get it, because someone else on Book Talk, her name's Brittany, and I don't remember her last name or her handle, but she had made a comment while I was reading where she got to a certain point and was like, there's Maas. Like, there's the Maas that we know from these other writings that she's done before. So I think that might have been why I personally had a problem with the length and how the story went itself, because it's so in-depth, it's so intricate. Everyone and everybody has their own thing happening, and it's like, if you don't pay attention, you are going to miss what is going on. Similar to Game of Thrones. You don't know why they fired that person? Well, you out of luck, because it's going to pop up 4 books later, and you best remember what happened. So it's interesting that she's kind of stepping into this, like, very in-depth world right away versus, like, a build-up to it. And so maybe, you know, we just aren't prepared for that style of writing or what it is. Because I told you in the first book, I had a really big problem, like, being connected to this book, which is abnormal for me. And so in this second one, it started off again the same way. I was like, dang it, like, what is going on? And then I got to, you know, basically it was like halfway through the book after you learn about Sophie, and I was like, oh, like, there it is. Like, so I don't know what that's about personally, but
so yeah. you like that. You like when they all have their own, they're going their own way.
I personally did, because it's very similar, because the end goal is to take out the Asteri, right? Like, the end goal is to change the hierarchy of where they're living. That's, like...
But is everybody fighting for that goal? Is that what Tyrion is fighting for?
Everyone is fighting for their freedom in their own way. That's the best way I can put it. But I think Tyrion is also he's fighting his own need to not be a part of a world that's suffocating. Because each world is like, because each community, if you will, is all shoved into this, you know, Pangera style thing or whatever. And they all have their own, you know, traditions and people and how they do things. And it's all abnormal and different. So I think that's what's going on, is they're fighting for their freedom to lead their lifestyle that they're used to.
Okay, well, I mean, that makes sense. I still don't like it, but it makes sense.
That's what and I could be totally wrong. Like,
no, I think you're right.
But it, to me, like, when I looked at it that way, then the whole setup of it made more sense, and I enjoyed it more once I figured that out.
Okay.
Because until they find Sophie, I was like,
I was just salty because we spent half of the book finding someone who's dead, and then we find out Emil has no power, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me with this right now? I felt gypped.
You are, as they say, You are a survivor of mass destruction.
Oh my. And that's the title. You are a survivor of mass destruction. Oh my God.
Well, or a victim of mass destruction is another one that they say. Because she is just, she did not disappoint me in a lot of the things that got dropped in this book. The mind bone, plot twists. I was in my car when I learned about who Danica's mate is, and I almost peed myself. Because I did not see that coming.
Because there were so many characters, I honestly don't even remember that guy from book 1. So when Bastian, whatever, when it was revealed, I was just like, I don't know who that is. I don't know why I'm supposed to care.
See, I reread book 1, though. In all fairness, I literally just reread book 1 to prepare for book 2 because, I felt like I missed everything. And so if I would not have done that, all these, secondary characters, I'd have been like, who the hell is that? Where did you come from? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there are so many people. So she still does not disappoint with the jaw-dropping plot twist because I did not see that coming. My whole entire time with Baxian was, what does he know? Who is he connected to? Are you just trying to be a softie, get on Hunt's good side? Because this guy was horrible. He was really bad. He was aligned with the Harpy and the Bloodhound and the Hind and all these other really horrible people that, their method of interrogation is just horrendous, right? They are all about the bloodshed. And so to then find that he was mated to Danica, girl who's got 100 million secrets, that I literally I was so over the fact that Danica was hiding all of these secrets because it's well, then you didn't even know her as a character.
No.
At all. Who we first meet as Danica is not who Danica is. She is a conniving, hidden agenda person who was out to find her own bloodline and to seek out what was really going on. And she was playing everyone, even her best friend, who she calls a sister, Bryce. And it's I lost a little bit of trust for her. I lost loving their friendship because Bryce has literally been denied truth from Danica in a lot of areas. And to me, that makes her a not trustworthy person. Even though she sent all of them on this crazy journey to find Sophie, to find the truth about this theory, to find the truth about First Light, all of this stuff. And it's but you lied to your best friend, and she had to look like an idiot over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if Maas plans out her books. You know what I mean? I don't know if she has all of her books planned out from book 1 to book 5 or whatever. It seems like she writes the first book, it becomes popular, and then she has to be oh, now I need to go back and do more stuff with this character, because I feel like Danica wasn't set up in book 1 to behave the way she was in book 2.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, especially with Danica. I don't, when it came out that Maas was writing an adult fantasy book, right? I think she struggled with it trying to be adults, and then she shifted in, like I said, to her old style of writing, and that made more sense because we got all of these backstories that all will eventually play out, on these separate little side stories, like she did in Throne of Glass. and she did in a Kotar as well. So it's, I don't know. I feel like the book suffered in that retrospect for it because that's all I have. Sorry.
Okay. It's okay. My other big problem, and I could be wrong, was I feel like the ending, which was, is it the Asteri? I got them all mixed up. Who's the bad guys at the end?
The Asteri.
Okay. So they're just like siphoning life off of all these other people from other dimensions. But I feel like there was little to no foreshadowing through the first half of the book, the first 700 pages of the book. There was a little bit because they kept talking about First Light, which I still don't know what the hell that is. But they kept talking about that, and that is a foreshadow. But there was no foreshadow to them stealing like all of their life force just to stay alive. Like, I feel like that came out of nowhere. Am I wrong?
I think you might have just missed it, and that is simply because the first book is so long as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the Asteri are.
I mean, I know who they are. I just can't remember between them and the other guys. I got them mixed up. But my point is that this book, readers like to make predictions in her books. And, but I feel like no one was able to predict this because she didn't set this up. I feel like there was no setup for this major revelation at the end of the book. There's no theories on this at all.
I don't think there was, because at the same time, even because I'm just like, I feel like she's breaking it to us slowly, and that's why it's agonizing.
I don't like that.
Okay. To me, it reminds me a lot of what she did in the Throne of Glass series, where, at first it was just, Aileen trying to battle against, these hidden forces that were coming out. And then it turned into this whole big thing, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like she's like piecemealing it.
And that's my problem. I feel like she hasn't planned out her book. She's just writing it as it comes along. And I don't like that. I feel like writers who write a series, they kind of plot what's going to happen in their book, and they have an idea of how a book is going to progress, and they make sure that you drop hints in book 1 that come back in book 3 and keep going. Whereas I feel like even in Throne of Glass, which I love, by the way, the first book could have been a standalone. And then she's like, oop-de-doop, I got to make other stuff, so let me create the Valge and all of that stuff. And she just kept adding and adding and adding. But I just felt like that was done a little bit better because they all had the same goal. Whereas this one, it's a lot of different characters. They all have different goals. They have the same goal, but they have their own stuff. It's just a lot. I just felt like it's a little incohesive. Uncohesive, you know what I mean?
No,
not cohesive.
No, I think it's fair to say, and I'm saying that, because I have a completely different opinion, which is totally fine, right? But I think that if you can't just pick this book up and go, I'm gonna sit and read it. You have to. She writes it to be dissected and to really think about it, and I think that's what was happening, and to me, it's not as big of a shock because I literally just reread book 1 again. You know what I mean? Which is sad that it's you have to pre-prep yourself so you remember what the heck's going on, because there was so much character based storyline with the first book, and then it went into plot, and I was like, but I want more of the characters, and it was still into plot, and then it went back to characters and stuff like that. So I hear what you're saying. I personally think it was there and it was enough for me. okay with, like, giving me a little bit at a time? Because there was a foreshadow about it in the last book about this theory and everything like that. But we originally thought that the bad people were the archangels, and they're not. They're being controlled by the Asteri. You know, so it's like they're using them to further their own gain. They remind me of the book The Host. Do you remember that book?
Barely.
Okay, well, they're like, you know, leeching basically in, and how they talked about how they've, you know, bred out the Fey ears, and they've bred out them remembering that they were enemies, and like all of this stuff. Like, it's super deep, and it's a lot. I will give you that. It's a lot. Because a lot of this all gets dropped on us at the end, and then we're left with that giant cliffhanger, which I still don't know if I'm okay with that. Because I still don't know if I'm okay with it. With the ending of the book, for me personally, which we can talk about, but yeah, I think it was there. I mean, you almost have to, like, write it down with, like, a pen and paper, you know, like a little note.
I don't blame her for readers not remembering what happens in book 1. That's up to the reader to refresh their memory. And I chose not to. That's on me. And that's fine. But I still personally think that she did not do enough foreshadowing for us to be like, to be able to create theories and predictions of that ending. I still feel like that ending came out of nowhere. Even in book 1, book 2. I mean, forget book 1. I didn't remember anything on book 1. Forget that. Book 2, I still feel like there should have been more, and I feel like that came out of left field.
I think, yeah. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, another thing, because we had some predictions about Jezebia. Do you remember Jezebia? Her old boss.
Yeah.
Who has, like, the library and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So, like, the last part of book 1, we see the Prince of Hell and Jezebia chatting away on a park bench. Like, you're going to have to move the stuff. Things are about to happen. Make sure you protect it. Like, that was, like, the last of book 1, okay? So going into book 2, I'm like, all right, Jezebia, this girl has, like, hidden archives that have been passed down for millennia. And we still don't know what all is in her trove, what all she holds. She just always happens to have the missing link some way. You know, and it's like Jezebia she was in, like, the first part of the book, like, when they had to go to the bone quarter, and they were trying to, like, buy passage over to see if Connor's soul and Danica's soul, if they were resting peacefully at yada, 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 in that place. And she's like, I only have one left to make it work, you know, or whatever. And it's like, that was the last we heard of Jezebia. And I'm like, this girl has her own freaking story. Where is she at? You know what I mean? And then we're then introduced to more of, like, Flynn's backstory and Declan and Therian, and I'm like, okay. So there was a lot of, I felt like the characters were underdeveloped in a lot of ways because there was a lot of time spent on the plot. And then all of a sudden it was like, let's chat about the characters and actually give them, like, a storyline, if you will. Like, I loved the whole bro dynamic with Ethan, Flynn, and Declan, and Ruin, and, like, all of that. Like, they're all bachelors. They're all just trying to find their own place in the world, yada, yada, yada. But yet they band together, like, we need you to come help. I love that imagery because, especially for Ethan, because he was excommunicated out of the wolf pack because he stood up for Bryce and was like, y'all are being mean to her. She didn't do nothing. She literally saved everybody, and you're all just giving her a hard time for no reason. Then he's excommunicated from his pack, you know. And then they they go on this Mary Van hunt to find Sophie Renast and her brother Emil, and turns out that Sophie's dead. Oh, and by the way, Sophie was in love with Cormac, who is Bryce's cousin, who comes and is like, oh, you're going to be my bride. It's like, oh, no. I'm not doing a love triangle. Don't you do that to me. I don't want to see it. But Maas squished that, thank God. Like, that was just a little blip in time. I about, like, lost my mind. I was like, I ain't got time for this. Like, this should not be in here. And it wasn't. I was okay with that. Like, I was okay with him coming in and being like, but I really need you to help me find her because she's like the love of my life and whatever. Okay, cool. You know, and then you find Emil, and then Emil then becomes like Bryce's adopted brother, like, to save him because he ain't got no powers. Like, I wasn't like Bryce. There was a quote in the book that summed her up perfectly. Bryce is a collector of lost things, or of hurt things that need fixing, and that's what she did. Is she collected people who need like fixing and things. So I liked that because it gave us a little bit more about Bryce. But yeah, her and Hunt's relationship, I was there for, but I wasn't like chapter 55 there for, if you will.
Well, let's break some of that up because you went on like 4 different topics.
I know. Sorry. Go ahead. Break it up. This is what happened.
Okay, so you were talking, and I'm not saying that you're comparing it to Game of Thrones or anything, but you were talking about how it's like it's an adult book. There's more in here. Gotta take notes. And I totally disagree. So, yeah, I know this is adult fantasy, but I think the only reason why it's adult is because of the sex. Like, I've as someone who has read some adult fantasy, this is not good enough as far as intellect and critique. It's just a lot of characters and their stuff. And it doesn't really go into anything deeper. And that's what I was missing. So, like, Tyrion, actually, I kept calling him Tyrion because I actually did not like this book. And I had to amuse myself. And one way to do that is to change character names. So I'm just calling him Tyrion. He actually had a really good storyline because he doesn't like who he not who he is. He wants to be above water. He's kind of stuck in this marriage with this woman who's a big baby. And he's like a slave to the River Queen. And he doesn't want to, but he does it out of duty. And, you know, so he has a very interesting storyline. But Maas does not go into it at all. It's really just very surface level. He's just like, okay, River Queen, I'll do it. And everyone's like, why are you, like, doing what she says? Stand up for yourself. And he's just like, it's my duty. And his wife is like, give me to tell me, mommy. Like, he has something there. It's not developed at all. And Rune, once again, he actually has a really good storyline as well. He is a reluctant ruler. He has daddy issues. He is kind of in the shadow of his sister, even though he's the chosen one, kind of. He's got this awesome sword. Like, he has a lot going on in his storyline, too. But it's reduced to him and Daybreak. To just him lusting after this woman, even though he's betrothed to this other woman who's dating this other woman. Like, there's a lot to work with here. But I feel like it's very surface level. She doesn't get into any serious themes, really. It's just much skimming on the surface. And her books rely heavily on a lot of characters and fae sex, and it just could be deeper. And when I read an adult fantasy, and I've said this before, if I read an adult fantasy, I expect to be challenged. I wasn't challenged at all. And I don't
Which
like
is-
it.
which is sad.
I consider this fluff.
Okay. Yeah. I see, and I personally would put it as adult because of the complexity of the characters.
I wouldn't.
Because there's so many things.
I wouldn't at all.
You know,
Like,
so.
okay, so like
What you're.
just one little example. So like, I'm trying to think. As far as adults, if I'm going to compare like a character study, I'm expecting it to be on the level of the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I expect that is the level of adult fantasy I am expecting. I am expecting a Robin Hobb, which I don't think you read, but I'm expecting that type of adult fantasy character study, or even just V. Schwab. I don't get that here. I feel like it's very surface, like Vicious by V. Schwab. I expect that type of character development, and I don't get it in her books.
Oh. Well, see, and that's I think part of like where, you know, you and I differ on like what we enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, it's just because this season I hated it, you know, and you loved it.
Mm-hmm.
So but I think this is what makes for such a great book discussion, is because like everyone has their own level of how they want to be challenged, like while they're reading, and what they deem to be like a really good read.
Yeah.
Whereas like I have friends that are like, when I read the last page of the book, if I'm less satisfied, I will give a book 5 stars. And it's like, oh really? Because I would not do that. I would like really look at it and really be like, oh, okay, like, did I like this? Did I like that? Like, so it's just awesome to see the different levels in like how we read a book when you're reading it, you know? Yeah. And it's like, I do agree with you though. Like, there wasn't anything to be challenged in like theme wise, I guess. Except for like there was the big talk on like slavery and being enslaved and stuff like that was like brought up in the book, being owned.
It's still very
stuff, but it's like
still surface level. They didn't really go too deep into it.
Yeah. So because someone else had said that, and I was like, I don't know if I agree if that's worthy to talk about in it. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to just start with what were your thoughts on Bryce?
I don't like Bryce. She's not, there's not much to her. Like,
yeah.
Like, she's a badass and she wears her cute little dresses and her high heels, and she's sexy and everybody loves her. All the men love her, and she's a nice person and she's smart. She's like all the things, but that's it. She's strong and she's smart and she's sexy. She's the dream, but she does have some flaws where that, like you said, she's a collector of things, and she wants, like, she was going to help this boy, even though it could kill her and everyone around her. That I consider that to be a flaw, because she's not taking other people's life in consideration. It's admirable, but it's still a little bit of a flaw. Other than that, she has no flaws.
Yeah. Well, other than she don't talk to people about what she's doing. She reminds me a lot of Aileen in the way she kept her mouth shut. Yeah. In her plotting. And it's like, didn't we learn from the first one? We don't do that. Mm-hmm. Like, we in places that are not good, but at the same time, I feel like it reflects her as a character, because she is an independent person. She's had to make it on her own for quite some time, and so she's just created a world where she operates solely as the main driver and has a hard time letting other people operate it with her, you know? So it's like, I wish, my hope in book 3 is that we get like this other deeper level, because now she's separated from the people she loves. Like 110%, and is stuck in a world where she knows no one. So, yeah. But I wasn't for the Hunt and her, like, romance. Like, it was like a 6, 7 out of 10. It wasn't really a 10 for me. I was there for it, but I was like, come on, give me more.
Yeah, I like, okay, once again, I'm not a big Akatar fan. So I don't really know the whole mate lore that everybody else was. I watched a couple of booktubers talk about the book, and like everyone's like, "Oh my god, they're mates. I didn't see that coming." And everyone's like shocked, and it's just like over my head. So I don't get that. But I didn't like them nearly as much as I liked Feyre and Rhysand. I felt like they were hot. And they were the only reason why I read book 2, because they were hot in book 1. But I didn't get any of that heat with Hunt and Bryce.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's an underdeveloped situation between them because they're just understanding or starting to learn what it means to be mated. Because as Hunt talks about it, he's like, this is like from olden times, like old, like you don't find a mate, like, you know, and so I don't think they understand the complexity of it, if you will. And so that might be why it's less attractive, is because, you know, with Rhysand and Feyre, it was like this whole big thing, right? Okay. And it's like, so I don't think they understand it, and I think they're going to. I think that might be like the purpose of it. But it's like a slow burn still. I'm still slow burning over here, and it's like
I'm burnt out.
I want the Ruin and Daybreaker crap. Like, that was great. It's like, what is happening? You know? So let's I guess we'll just go down the list. Do you want to talk about Ruin?
Yeah, was the Hind in book 1?
Yes.
Okay, I don't remember her. My problem with the Hind and Pippa was that I felt like there was a lot of telling about how horrible they were and how maniacal they were, but there was not a lot of showing. So I never saw the Hind be a horrible person. I was just kept being told so. And so when it was revealed that she was Daybreaker, I was just like, because I didn't really know her. So I didn't develop any like, oh my god, yay, or oh my god, ew. I didn't really know her.
I'm still shocked. I am still shocked. I thought, there was a moment in the book where I was like, I swear to goodness, if it's the Hind, I'm going to pee my pants. And I did, because I was secretly hoping it wasn't, just because I was sick and tired of the interwoven spider web between everyone. Just for my brain personally, it was like having a hard time wrapping it around, you know, Baxian and Danica, and then you're gonna throw that there. I'm like, what? You know. So it wasn't bad, but I was like, oh, I wonder if it was. And then we kind of skiddly booted across it, and I was like, oh, okay. And then it happened, and I was like, oh, because yet again, you're right. We didn't have, the Hind wasn't speaking in a lot of the books. We didn't see her like physically massacre all of these people, you know, like it's talked about. But she sends like the harpy to do her bidding. Like, so she uses the harpy to do it because she is actually a rebel that just want to do it herself.
I mean, it makes sense.
Like,
at the end, you find out, but still.
But still, it's like, whoop, you know. And so their whole relationship, I was there for, because I like Rune. I really do. I am there for him 100%. I feel for him big time. So I really like him. And I like the fact that he's not being like an over brooding brother. that's like when Bryce steps into her power and all of that stuff and whatever, he's not like, you can't go anywhere. He's like, oh, okay, I guess we're all going along with, but could you just maybe like just let us know what you're doing? Type of, I don't know. Their relationship is beautiful, and I really like it.
Yeah,
personally.
I agree.
Therian, yet again, someone commented on a booktube and said that they thought that Therian was kind of like Fenris from Throne of Glass series. Like they're trying to write a Fenris like character, and I was like, I don't see that. You know, he's one of Rowan's people.
Okay.
If you know, I think he's a mountain lion is what he turns into or whatever. But he's like the funny jokester that's always off doing his own thing. It kind of has his own hidden agenda, if you will. It doesn't really fit in where he's at. And I got that with Therian, and I was actually glad that he left the... What is she called?
The River Queen.
Thank you. The River Queen. But he makes dumb choices. The boy makes dumb choices. Like very like rash, like, oh crap, we're in a situation. I guess I should just leave. And he runs to the Viper Queen of all people. And it's like, excuse me? You're gonna sell your freedom to someone else, and she's just as bad. I don't get that.
Maybe they're setting them up for a relationship.
If it's a relationship, it's gonna be him and the dragon, whatever that cheeky boo is.
Girl, I skipped all that. I was over it. I'm like, I can't take any more characters.
Oh no. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, let's talk about Hypaxia. She and Miss Celestina, the other Archangel, did not see that coming.
Oh, okay. No.
That thing makes perfect sense, because it was Celestina when she's supposed to be mated to this guy, and she's like, I am not having it, yada yada yada, like I don't want it. Like, oh, she love her somewhere, but did not see that coming at all. And you can see the start of like a love triangle between Hypaxia and Therian a little bit in Ruin, if you wanted to like put one there, because he definitely's got some hots for her.
Therian?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
she goes, oh.
I don't remember that, but
Yeah.
okay.
What's the other one? Okay, so Ethan.
Ugh, I hated his story. I hated it.
Yeah. Okay. I did not see like the whole thing with the mystic and all of that stuff happening, where he like finds the lost like Fendir alpha that's been missing, which makes sense because Danica's mom, what's her name?
Sabine.
Thank you, Sabine, has been on like this rocker about protecting her title and what's going to be hers and all of this stuff, and the prime's still up and kicking and whatever. And so I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. But again, it's a lot. You know? So yeah. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we get into
what?
last
We don't
part?
have spoilers. I remember in our first podcast that we were very upset that there was no booty time. So there was a lot of booty time in this one. So what are your thoughts?
I thought it was good though in a lot of ways, because it wasn't like a whole bunch of like 15 pages of booty time. Does that make sense? Like, it was sprinkled in there well, in my opinion. What about you? What was your favorite booty time? Let's talk about that. What's your favorite booty time?
I hate to say this, but I was skipping over it. I don't like them. I don't like them. And I didn't like the talk during, because it was cringy. And I read the first 2, but after the sweaty oral, I was over it. I'm like, I don't care about them anymore. So I felt bad because I knew we were going to talk about it, but I was like, I don't know.
Oh, it's okay, because I watched the book talker, a booktuber, I forget her name, but she was like, I'm sorry, but if my man is talking to me while we about to get it on, he's not doing it right.
I think I saw her too.
So that was hilarious, because I like bypass all the talking, because I like, in my brain, I'm like, let's just, get it over with and move on. But I'm like, he's just talking to her doing it, but I'm like, do you talk that much? Like so it was funny. Because then when I looked back on it, I was like, oh yeah, there was a lot of like, do you like this? Give me all the purrs, whatever, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's all I really had.
Okay. Let's talk about the end then, because
Okay.
I feel like we got into a lot with it. So she finds out the thing that Sophie died for, the thing that Danica died for, right? She learns all about the Assyri and the fact that they're basically siphoning power to live, and they've been doing it for millions and millions of years, conquering other worlds and whatever. And they get to the throne room because they get caught, and this is when we all figure out that the Hind is actually a rebel. Baxian is there as well, and that the Hind has helped Bryce because they know that Bryce can teleport now with her powers out of wherever she's at. And so she says goodbye to her mate and her brother finally spills the guts of like, you need to step in and be queen that you are because of everything that you hold in your power. It's not me, it's gonna be you. Which that was all beautiful. All of the goodbyes were all beautiful, and it was really sad, and I was crying, and it was great. But then, she jumps into the gate hoping to find Adius, the Prince of Hell, and she, lo and behold, lands in Rhysand's court. And guess who picks her up? Our own shadow singer, Azriel. Azriel picks her up. And you know how I know this? Because it references his scarred hands. And I was like, excuse me? Like, okay. And so then she's brought into Rhysand and Feyre's, like, house, basically. And she meets Amren. She meets Nesta and Cassian. I didn't see a reference to Moore. Did you see a reference to Moore at all?
I don't even know who these people you are talking about are. I told you I didn't get past book 2. Okay. So this was all lost on me.
Oh no, Dawn. Oh no.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'll dissect as best I can for you. So she gets there, and she's, like, talking to them, and Amren is like, honey, no one has spoken your language in a very long time. Like, they're all speaking in a different language, and no one can understand her in any capacity. And so Rhysand, being almighty Rhysand, who always, like, knows everything, he reminds me a lot of Aileen in a lot of retrospects. Like, he just has, like, so much knowledge. He introduces himself and is like, hello, Bryce Quinlan. My name is Rhysand. And, like, that was it, And so all that happens there is that her star sword ends up on the ground, which is twin to Azrael's sword, Shadow Singer, or Shadow Slayer, I think is the name, which if you remember in the book, Ruin's gift is shadows. And Rhysand looks like Ruin. Like, she's like, oh my gosh, he looks like Ruin, but without Ruin's tattoos and his piercings and stuff like that. So that whole thing happens. And now I don't know where this book's gonna go. Because now you're intermixing two very, very big worlds. Very big worlds. You know, and there was a blip at the end of, what is it? What was the last one? No. Oh my gosh. What is the last book in the Throne of Glass series? What's the name? Do you remember? What is it?
Kingdom of
Ash.
Okay.
Kingdom of Ash. Okay. So the last book of Kingdom and Ash, Aileen skips worlds as well and waves to Rhysand. That's a whole thing that happens there. So now it's like, now Bryce has teleported into Rhysand and Feyre's world, and it's like, so now I have all these questions where it's, you know, did the Asteri infiltrate their world as well? Were, you know, what was the Val like part of the Asteri as well? Like, were they a part of the same world because they don't remember where their world is? Like, there's all these thoughts in my head. So, yeah, I did not see that coming.
No.
At all.
I didn't see it coming. I was kind of bummed because I would have rather she jumped to the Throne of Glass universe just because I'm more familiar with it. And so the ACOTAR is lost on me. But
as you said, I think she is writing for her fans because there's also like something going around where it's like they should have seen the title referencing something because the House of Sky and Breath is like a reference to ACOTAR. So,
okay.
Yeah. So now I have no idea what to think in my brain. Because I don't want to say it because I'm going to spoil everything for you. Anyway, not going to do it.
Girl, I don't care.
Because there's just so many left untold stories in the Court of Thorns and Roses series that are still left, like, dealt with. Like, Azrael is still not mated. We don't know who his mate is. And we just had Cassian and Nesta's story. So now it's like, how does that all work? And why does Rhysand look like Rune? What does that mean? Who, you know, is Bryce's father the Autumn King? Is he, you know, the descendant of the Autumn Court? Like, is that a thing? Is Rune a descendant of the Night Court from his mom's side? Like, all of these things I have questions about because Rune has same dark hair, very similar colored eyes. Bryce looks a lot like Lucian. So, yeah, all these things.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay. All right.
I think that wraps it up, don't you?
Yeah.
What are your guys' theories? Dawn and I want to know because poor Dawn probably won't join the next read with me. Unless you finish the ACOTAR series, then we can chat.
I'm not going to finish that series.
What's your problem?
It's too convoluted. It's too much. I like a very simple plot and character development. I don't like all that stuff happening. I don't like it.
That's okay. Ashley likes it. I'll tell it to you for you. We really appreciate you guys joining us for our discussion of House and Sky and Breath. We don't know where our next book is, Dawn.
Is it All the Rage?
Are we reading All the Rage? You're right. We're reading All the Rage. Which, is that the
Saba?
It's the Saba one, right?
Yeah.
Saba Tahir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All the Rage by Saba Tahir. I thought we were reading Gallant by B.E. Schwab. So, I apologize first.
Well, I have All the Rage checked out, and it's due back in like 8 days, so I think we should just do that one first.
We're going to do All the Rage by Saba Tahir, which I'm excited to read, though, because, like, Saba wrote Ember in the Ashes, and John and I both loved Ember in the Ashes. The rest of the series is, you know, to each his own opinions. I'm curious to see how this is going to go for us.
It's realistic fiction. That's my only reservation.
We can do it. We can do it, Dawn. We're branching out. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
So if you ever pop on YouTube, Dawn sometimes posts our videos to YouTube as well. And she's been doing some posts on Instagram for us as well, because she's got all the time to read for us. So we really appreciate you joining us, and we will catch you in the next podcast.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.